The last one is actually under what we call pharmacological criteria, and this is where a person has tolerance. So they need to drink more to achieve the effect they were having previously.
Yes.
And number two, if they fail to drink, they encounter severe withdrawal symptoms like shaking. Actually, in my native language, you have a name for that shaking, and they have to go and drink to spare themselves the withdrawal symptoms.
Effects.
Yes.
Okay.
Alcoholism for me is the consumption of like alcohol in so much quantity.
Alcoholism is the act of taking alcohol like regularly but abusing it.
Alcoholic, someone who drinks a lot, someone who is addicted to alcohol.
Stress in life, the way life is hard right now, and there's no other form of, I think they find there's no other form of recreation apart from alcohol.
I guess for us youths, it's because of stress. Maybe just because of fun.
Peer pressure, it's what is making people do it, because there's no way you can come from home, you have been raised well not to drink alcohol, and then you come to campus like here where people are drinking, and then you just start drinking. I think it's peer pressure.
Welcome to another episode of State of Mind. My name is Dr. Tuco-Kenya, your host today. We're going to be having an interesting and engaging discussion in regards to alcoholism and the youth. If you'd like to join us online, you can do so on Facebook, on Switch TV Kenya, Twitter, Switch TV Kenya, YouTube, Switch TV Kenya, and Instagram, Switch TV KE. So our guest today is a psychologist. Her name is Jennifer Carey. So Jennifer, tell us about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Ruguru. I'm excited to be here today.
Yes.
So Jennifer is a psychologist, like you mentioned, currently practicing in Kiambu Level 5 Hospital. But even more to that, I'm a woman who is so passionate about mental health and also this topic of alcoholism and all other topics that fall under mental health. And I'm also passionate about creating mental health awareness, and I'm so happy to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. We are very excited to have you. And just tell us, why alcohol? Why are you very interested in alcoholism as a discussion in regards to mental health?
Yes, I'm really passionate about this because I have a history with alcoholism. For those maybe who have seen me mention it out there, I lost my own father to a reason that was directly related to alcoholism because he drowned while drunk. And he had struggled with alcoholism for almost 10 years actually. And at some point he was admitted in the hospital. He improved, but he did not manage to cut it off. And so he died. He drowned and died at some point. So at some point I really started wondering what would cause a person to continue drinking alcohol even when it is messing their lives. And I developed interest in uncovering alcoholism, its underlying issues, and that is why I'm happy to be able to get a chance to create awareness on it.
Okay. Thank you, Jennifer, for sharing that very intricate and personal detail with us here.
Yes.
I'm sure it's going to help more people who are struggling with alcoholism, and you're going to change lives today. So tell us, what people drink. People are always partying, people are going to Vasha, having parties, drinking their mizingas. But then at what point will you say that someone is becoming an alcoholic?
Now, that question, it's covered within the subtopic of the diagnostic criteria that we use for people with alcoholism.
Yes.
Alcoholism clinically is diagnosed as alcohol use disorder, and there are some criteria that maybe we shall go into details later. But there are some things that make you see, wow, here we have a problem.
Yes.
And an example is when a person can no longer control their drinking behavior. So he will say, tomorrow I'm not going to drink, but they find themselves drinking.
Yes.
You find a person skipping work to go and drink. You find a person having issues in the family, issues at work that are related to the taking of alcohol, but they are not stopping. And also in other cases, you find that a person uses most of their time either obtaining alcohol, drinking alcohol, or recovering from it. So there are a number of factors that we really look into that make us realize this is a person who is struggling with their drinking behavior.
So with the drinking behaviors.
Because otherwise, normal drinking, you are not supposed to find yourself drinking and you do not intend to. you know.
Yes, that's true.
Yes, you cannot be losing your wife and here because of alcohol. You are drinking of alcohol, and then you continue drinking.
Yeah.
So by the time it gets there, then it shows this is a person who is now struggling.
Yeah, struggling with alcoholism. So you want to tell us that people who probably drink once in a while when they have organized to take alcohol with their friends, they might not be having what you call alcoholism.
You know.
So you have to struggle physically, mentally.
Yes.
Your social life is suffering. Your work life is also suffering.
Yes.
For us to say that you have alcoholism.
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. Thank you. Good. So let me ask. So what is driving the rising trend of alcoholism among young people in this country? Because taking alcohol is becoming very fashionable.
Yes, yes, yes.
You're finding people every Friday on their Instagram stories, they're drinking instead of going for other activities. So what is driving the trend of alcoholism among our youth?
Okay, no, thank you for raising that question, because if we don't ask ourselves what is bringing us here, then we cannot be able to address the problem. Now, there are a host of factors that are causing this rising trend of taking alcohol, or alcoholism to be specific. And now one of them is actually ease of access. Right now we know even near where we stay, you find that there is a wines and spirit, there's a club. So if you want alcohol at any point, even at night, you can get it.
Even delivery services of
delivery
alcohol.
services, yeah. And we know like the illicit brews, which are actually the most likely to drive a person into alcoholism, they're also very easily accessible in the villages. They get it. If you want it in the morning, you can get it. Noon, evening, night, you can always get it whenever you want. So ease of access is one factor. Alcohol is accessible even to school children. We know that.
That's true. Yes, it is.
Yeah, so that is one of the factors. Number two, we know that negative peer pressure also plays a huge role. Actually, you hardly ever see a person who has turned into who has gotten into alcoholism. You hardly ever see them drinking alone. They are usually doing it as a group
together.
Yes. So if you find that your group is going out to drink today, it becomes really hard for you to resist. And before you know it, you also you have become you have gotten into alcoholism. And by the way, we usually say, some people ask, why is it that I suffer from alcoholism and have been drinking with this person, or they have drunk longer than I. But we usually say that we are all different biologically. We are built differently. So there is a person who is genetically predisposed, because we know actually heredity is one of the risk factors for alcoholism. Yeah. So you'll find that you may be drinking in a group, but some end up getting into alcoholism, but others don't.
Do not get into
the other factor that is causing the rising trend is joblessness.
Yes,
and
that's
this,
true.
Yes, and this more so applies in the villages, or even also in our cities, when people don't have work, so they are spending a lot of their time during the day idling. They are likely to get into alcoholism as well.
That's true.
Another factor is hopelessness. Hopelessness, when you don't have a reason to look forward to tomorrow, many people get into alcoholism. They start drinking, and before they know it, they have got into alcoholism.
Deep alcoholism.
Yes. The other thing is poor stress coping habits. Yes, because I know you have heard at some point someone saying, when I'm stressed, I go to
get to drink again.
Yes. And by the way, it's very dangerous. I wish people knew. It's very risky to actually take alcohol when you're stressed. You have higher chances of actually getting addicted if you take it where you are stressed.
You're stressed out.
You are teaching your brain that, or your mind, that alcohol is what suppresses your stress. So eventually you find yourself you are hooked to it. So that is another factor. The other factor is poor mental health. Yes, some of these mental disorders, like bipolar disorder, attentional deficit hyperactivity disorder, and we know most people who have those disorders, they are never diagnosed. They also predispose people to alcoholism. Marital issues, and we know they are very we really have, like those who are in the psychology space, like myself, those who are practicing, we know that we deal with so much of those. And some people, remember you said poor stress and coping habits. So if someone is experiencing marital issues at home, what do? They start
get
drinking.
to drink,
And before they know it again, they have gotten into alcoholism. So those are some of the factors that we can blame for what we are seeing right now.
Thank you. So factors that we can actually blame on the rising trends of alcoholism in our youth and generally the middle-aged people in our country. So we know, you've told us they're mostly social causes
Yes.
that cause people to get into alcoholism. So does childhood trauma cause alcoholism?
No. I would not precisely say causes, but I would say it predisposes people. And by the childhood trauma is a huge underlying factor for alcoholism. There are so many people, and I'm going to explain how this happens.
Yes.
The reason why they became
alcoholics.
The reason why they got into alcoholism, it's because of their unaddressed childhood wounds. Now, one thing, if like myself, by the way, there is something I never told our viewers. Myself, I suffered from severe childhood wounds because of growing up seeing my father abusive and all that, because of being into alcoholism. And a person who had such wounds and they have not been addressed, such person tends to be bitter, angry, and so some of them actually they start taking alcohol and persist at doing it to numb their pain, to numb their wounds, to numb their anger, and before they know it, they find themselves they have already gotten into alcoholism. Number two, if you have childhood wounds, we may have known that by now because we are really creating awareness out there
around the space.
Yes, if you have childhood wounds, you are likely to have marital issues. And remember, we have said in the question you have asked me earlier, we have said marital issues are one of the factors that are contributing to alcoholism. So if you had childhood wounds that are unaddressed, you have marital issues, and then they take you to alcoholism. Yes. In the same manner, if you find negative peer pressure, we talked about negative peer pressure. People who again had childhood trauma, and so they are dealing with that trauma. Perhaps let us say rejection is an example. A person who grew up being rejected, the moment they get a person who identifies with them, a person who embraces them, it could be a group. They get into that group and they will follow what that group does without even thinking twice. Before they know it again, they have already started problematic drinking. So childhood wounds is actually a big factor. And I want to mention something, by the way. There is what we call the tree of addiction. The tree of addiction tries to explain how addiction forms. I want you to imagine a tree, the tree that you know of.
Yes.
What we see, the branches, that is the addiction. And we are talking about addiction to alcohol and addiction to everything else, including to behaviors like gambling. Those are the branches. Then down there, for a tree, down there we have the soil. The soil that is actually feeding this tree and feeding the addiction. Now, at the ground in the soil, that is where you find childhood trauma. People who went through abuse, whether it's physical, verbal, or sexual. People who went through neglect or abandonment. People who went through even being raised by an alcoholic parent, actually it's also a source of trauma. So think of any traumatic experience that a child can have. It lies in the soil and it feeds addiction.
So it's the underlying cause of all.
It's one of
basically the underlying cause of all causes of alcoholism. And to add into that, also in regards to development. So we have multiple theories of development where, you know, if someone is stuck on the oral stage, so they'll end up drinking a lot, you know, the stages of development. So if they're stuck there, they're fixated there, they end up to drink a lot, end up smoking a lot. So basically how a person grew up can contribute a lot to them becoming an alcoholic or not.
And also you may also ask yourself, why is this person getting fixated there? Maybe it's because the parents were not really there to enable this person to have normal development. So again, that is why I'm telling you, childhood trauma is a big thing. Because people who had maybe parents who were absent, who had abandoned them, parents who had issues, who were abusing them, those are people who also have issues with their development. So at the end of the day, you see childhood trauma is actually...
It's the baseline. It's the baseline of everything. So let me ask, what goes on in the mind of an alcoholic? So as a psychologist for you, what drives their addiction?
No, two things. On one side, there are those who are thinking, I am in control, like they're in denial, you know. They are denying the reality. And that is why we shall see actually one of the factors that, one of the criteria for diagnosis for alcohol use disorder is a person who continues to drink despite that they're having problems. It's because in this person's mind, I'm in control.
Yes, so
I'm doing well. They try to think that I'm doing well. Actually, you try to tell a person that I think your drinking has a problem, and they'll tell you, you're the one one who have a problem, not me.
And they even get annoyed at
Yes.
some point.
Actually, they hate
They
it.
will get
you
very
mention
annoyed.
it and they don't like it. So one thing is denying. They don't admit that they have a problem.
Yes.
And actually, I will tell you from my experience in my current clinical setting, most of those that I see being treated for alcohol use disorder, they actually brought in because something a crisis happened. Perhaps this person drank and did not wake up again.
So they came to see
Yes,
the
they
medical
were brought,
part of the hospital.
Yes, they were brought actually as an emergency. And then that is when they are diagnosed. Hardly ever do you see a person bringing themselves that I think my drinking is problematic.
Yeah.
So mostly they are denying. In their mind, they are thinking they don't have a problem.
Yes.
But now we have a second category. These are people who actually know they have a problem, but they are not able to control themselves. And these are the people who really make multiple attempts to stop, but they are not able to.
Yes.
And they are usually feeling miserable. In the mind of this person, he or she is feeling miserable. And some actually even come to my inbox and tell me, I really want to stop, but they are not able to. So this is a person who have accepted they have a problem, but
And
they
they
don't
know.
know where to begin.
Yeah. So they know they have the problem, but
Yes.
stopping now is the...
Yes.
So let me ask, between the two, which one is easier to deal with? The one who is aware or the one who is in denial?
Of course, someone who has an insight of their problem is always easier.
It's easier to deal with that
Yes,
one.
exactly. Because if someone doesn't have an insight, they have not admitted they have a problem, they're usually hesitant to even comply to the doctor's instructions. I have seen some are actually brought by their elderly mothers, and the mother has to really push them to take the medication. So all the time, actually, whenever I see a patient, and I've seen a good number of them, and it makes me really happy when you see like a youth come in and
Individually,
say, yes,
and bringing themselves
and
to the clinic.
Yes, and some are actually told by the teachers, and I love what teachers are doing. Some are actually told by the teachers, you can get help somewhere. The teacher notices that this student is drinking, and they tell them you can go to a certain hospital and you get help. So someone comes and says, I think I have a problem. It's way easier.
It's way easier to deal with those ones who have insight compared to those who do not have insight
exactly.
of their situation. So is there something like a functional alcoholic? Who is a functional alcoholic?
Yes, there is something like a functional alcoholic, and this is a person who, despite drinking, despite being drunk, they are still able to function properly. And I know you have come across them out there. The only time you'll know that this person is actually drunk is because of the smell. Others, they appear...
Yes.
They are composed, they are doing their work well. So functional people who we say that they have functional alcoholism, these are people who are able to function despite, you know, when we talk of alcoholism, we think of people who are staggering, people who can't hold something
They are
properly.
dirty,
Yes,
they are
yes,
urinating on
yes.
themselves. Yeah.
People who are whose memory is retarded, you know, but there are people who can drink and still function. But now we need to issue a caution here that even if you are a functional alcoholic, you are actually at a higher risk of progressing to alcohol use disorder. Because actually, these people, they may not meet one of the key criteria for diagnosis, which is that a person has impaired control. This is a person, by the way, who is able to control himself.
Yeah.
But they may not meet that criteria, or even the criteria that you are not able to function because you are drunk. They are not meeting that criteria, but they stand a higher risk of progressing to alcohol use disorder because they are meeting the rest of the criteria.
Yeah.
So you can't say that I'm a functional alcoholic, so I don't need to care. You need to.
So even people who are able to go to work properly, do all their duties properly, but they are drunk, need to seek help.
Yes, they need to seek help because at some point they will progress to alcohol use disorder.
They progress to alcohol use disorder. Thank you for that. So how is alcoholism affecting the productivity of this young generation? Because as you said earlier, they are functional alcoholics, but they're not many.
Yes, there are not many actually.
But they're able to do work well. But how is alcoholism affecting the productivity of our young generation? So before you answer that, let me ask, which are the age groups of people who are really drinking a lot, who are really into alcoholism in our country?
No, from my experience, sadly, from my experience, we have high school students who are really drinking. They are really drinking a good number. Like in Kebu, we see many of them, like quite a number every single day. So they are really drinking. They may not have gotten into alcoholism because luckily the teachers flag them out.
Yes.
They frag them out, so they come to seek help. But we are seeing them really drinking. The other category is actually men who are at an age where they are supposed to be married and settled.
Okay.
And these are men whose wives ran away, actually. And
because of the alcoholism.
Yes. And you know, the hospital where I am currently, we serve a region that has high rates of alcoholism. And so you find that most of the men, they don't have families. And these are the age, I think, between 28 to 35 years.
Yes.
Or to 40, no, 28 to around 40 years or 45. That age group, you find it drinking a lot.
So that's the age group that is mostly affected in our country. So let me ask, now as we come to wind up, what are the telltale signs of alcoholism? How can you, apart from, you've already told us, someone is smelling like alcohol. So how can you tell a colleague in your office, a relative is secretly drinking? How would you know they are drinking?
No, the number one sign is always impaired control over their drinking behavior. A person will say, I will not drink tomorrow. We are going to a function, but I will not drink. But they find themselves drinking. So impaired control, they are not able to control their drinking. They're also not able to drink to control the amount. So they can say, I'll take one bottle and end up taking more.
The whole crate.
Yes, the whole crate. So impaired control is a big one. And another sign that a person has impaired control is that your marriage is affected, your job is affected, but you continue doing it. Number two, we have a category of signs that we call social impairment. Again, this is a person whose job can no longer go as it was going because they are drinking, they are messing things up. Again, social impairment can come in the form of family issues that are really being affected, but a person is still continuing to drink. Social impairment. And it can also be school, by the way. By social, we mean school, homework.
You're dropping out of school.
Yes, and you are still continuing to drink. Number three, we have what we call risky use.
Of alcohol.
Yeah, like we know we are not supposed to drink and drive. But a person who has gotten into alcoholism, they will know very well that they have a car that they need to take home, but they'll still drink. You know, that shows that's a person who engages in drinks the alcohol despite being in physically hazardous situations. So risky use. And also another form of risky use is you are being affected health-wise. Like you have seen people who have been told, you are a doctor, I love that. You have already told a person that their liver is being affected, they need to stop using, but they continue to use it.
Continue to use alcohol.
The last one is actually under what we call pharmacological criteria, and this is where a person has tolerance. So they need to drink more to achieve the effect they were having previously. And number two, if they fail to drink, they encounter severe withdrawal symptoms like shaking. Actually, in my native language, you have a name for that shaking, and they have to go and drink to spare themselves the withdrawal
effects. Okay, good. So that means when you tell us that they have to drink more, so let's say last month you're drinking 1 bottle, this month you have to take 3 or 4.
For you to get the same effect
you're getting before.
The feeling you are getting.
And you know, for the youth, they tend to think that, you know, I'm getting stronger.
Yes.
Mimi niko mgumu. I can actually drink more than the other ones, and I'm still, you know. But now you're actually getting down and down into alcoholism.
Exactly.
Okay. So, you know, Jennifer, we've had a lot of insight in regards to alcoholism. People really confuse alcoholism and, you know, just social drinking. And we are excited. You've really educated us and educated our audience, and we'd definitely love to have you on the show again.
Okay, I would love it. Maybe I don't know if you would allow me to mention this. I'm on Facebook.
Please do.
I'm on Facebook, Mental Health by Jennifer Kiarie. I create awareness on this and more. And I'm also on YouTube, Jennifer Kiarie.
Okay, so on Facebook, Mental Health by Jennifer Kiarie.
On YouTube, Jennifer Kiarie.
So that's where they're going to find you and get more of this information and learn a lot more from you. Okay, thank you so much for joining us today, and also for our online audience. We are excited to have you. Please leave us your comments and let us know what you think, and also let us know what you've learned. Till next time, bye.